Eleanor, or Ella as her friends called her, had always been the epitome of grace and resilience. At 64, she lived in a spacious, well-kept home that echoed with memories of a life shared with her late husband, Jonathan. The house was a testament to their love, filled with antiques and personal touches that spoke of their journey together. But today, as her 64th birthday dawned, the silence of the empty rooms weighed heavily on her heart. Ella sat in her favorite armchair by the window, the morning light casting a gentle glow over her thoughtful face. She traced the rim of her coffee cup, a gift from Jonathan, with a finger, feeling the warmth seep into her skin. The calendar on the wall, marked with a red circle around today's date, seemed to mock her solitude. Birthdays had always been special, a time for celebration and laughter, but since Jonathan's passing, they had become a stark reminder of her loneliness. She sighed, pushing herself up from the chair. The day stretched ahead, filled with nothing but the quiet companionship of her books and the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway. As she moved to the kitchen to prepare a modest breakfast, Ella couldn't help but wonder if this was how the rest of her days would be. Solitary, quiet, and uneventful. Yet even in her solitude there was a spark of hope, a wish that perhaps today might bring something unexpected, a change, a visitor, or at least a sign that she wasn't completely forgotten. Little did Ella know, her wish was about to come true in the most unexpected way. The afternoon sun had just begun to dip, casting long shadows across the living room when Ella heard a soft knock at the door. She paused, her heart skipping a beat. Visitors were rare these days, and she wasn't expecting anyone. With a mix of curiosity and apprehension, she made her way to the door, her slippers whispering against the polished wooden floor. Opening the door, Ella was met with a sight that made her heart leap. There stood Mason, Jonathan's stepson, now a young man of 28, looking as sharp and handsome as ever. He was dressed in a well-tailored suit, his hair neatly combed back, and in his hands he held a beautifully decorated birthday cake, complete with candles flickering gently in the breeze. "Happy birthday, Ella," Mason greeted with a warm, genuine smile that reached his eyes. "I didn't want you to spend your 64th birthday alone." Ella was taken aback, her emotions swirling between shock and delight. "Mason, what a surprise! You remembered!" Her voice was soft, tinged with disbelief. "How could I forget?" Mason replied, stepping inside. "I've been meaning to visit for a while now, but today seemed the perfect day." The room seemed to brighten with his presence, and Ella felt a warmth she hadn't known in years. Mason placed the cake on the coffee table, his gaze meeting hers, filled with a depth of care that made her feel truly seen. As they settled into the living room, Mason began to set the scene for a birthday celebration. He moved with familiarity, pulling out the vintage gramophone that had been Jonathan's pride. Ella watched, her heart fluttering as Mason selected her favorite record, one she hadn't listened to in ages. "How did you know this was my favorite song?" Ella asked, her voice barely above a whisper, her eyes locked on Mason as he adjusted the needle on the record. "I've always listened, Ella," Mason said, his voice calm yet full of emotion. "I remember everything you've ever shared." The melody filled the room, a soft, nostalgic tune that carried Ella back to happier times. Mason lit the candles on the cake, their light dancing in the dimming evening light. He then turned to her, his eyes bright with anticipation. "Make a wish, Ella." She closed her eyes, her mind racing with possibilities, her heart reaching out for something she hadn't dared to hope for. As she blew out the candles, the warmth of the flames seemed to ignite something within her, a spark of life she thought had long been extinguished. "Ella, I didn't just come here to celebrate your birthday," Mason began, his voice low, almost hesitant. "There's something I've been wanting to tell you for a very long time." Ella's breath caught in her throat, her gaze locked with Mason's, sensing the gravity of his words. The room seemed to shrink around them, the music fading into the background, as if the world was holding its breath for what was to come next. The room was bathed in the soft glow of candlelight, the gramophone's melody creating an intimate atmosphere. Mason's presence filled the space. His attention to detail in setting up this celebration for Ella was both surprising and touching. As they sat, the cake between them, Ella felt a mix of joy and confusion, her mind trying to grasp the reality of Mason's visit. Mason cut a slice of cake, his movements deliberate, and handed it to Ella. She took it, their fingers brushing briefly, sending a shiver down her spine. "I hope you like it," he said, his voice carrying a hint of nervousness. "It's perfect, Mason. Thank you," Ella replied, her voice warm with gratitude. They shared a moment of silence, savoring the cake, the taste sweet on their tongues, but the unspoken words hung heavy in the air. As the music played, Mason began to speak, his words flowing like the melody. "Ella, these past years, I've thought about you often. About how you've been alone, how you've carried on with such grace. I couldn't bear the thought of you spending another birthday by yourself." Ella listened, her heart swelling with a mixture of emotions. "I've tried to keep myself busy, you know. But it's not the same without Jonathan," she said, her voice tinged with sadness. "I know," Mason replied softly. "And I'm not here to replace him, Ella. I'm here because I've always felt a connection to you, one that I've tried to ignore, but it's grown stronger over time." His confession hung in the air, the room suddenly too small to contain the weight of his words. Ella felt her pulse quicken, her mind racing. "Mason, you shouldn't say things like that," she whispered, though her voice betrayed the tumult of emotions within her. "I know I shouldn't," Mason admitted, lowering his gaze momentarily before meeting her eyes with a resolve that made her breath hitch. "But I can't hold it in anymore. For 2 years, I've been haunted by thoughts of you, by what could have been." Ella's hands trembled, the fork clattering softly against the plate. "Mason, this isn't right," she said, though her heart was telling her something else entirely. "Right or wrong," Mason leaned closer, his voice low. "I can't deny what I feel, and neither can you. Your eyes tell me everything." The air between them seemed to crackle with an electric charge. Ella's mind was a whirlwind of conflict. Part of her wanted to push him away, to uphold the boundaries of propriety. But another part, the part that had been starved for affection, for connection, was drawn to him like a moth to a flame. "Thank you for not leaving me alone today," Ella finally said, her voice tight with emotion. "But Mason, this is dangerous. If we go further, neither of us will be able to turn back." Mason reached out, his fingers gently covering hers, a touch that shattered every logical barrier she had built. "I don't want to turn back, Ella," he said, his voice steady, yet filled with a passion that made her heart skip. "I just want to live this moment with you, to show you how I feel, to tell you how special you are to me." Tears welled up in Ella's eyes, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming realization of being seen, truly seen after so long. His words were a balm to her soul, a confession of a love that had been kept at bay for too long. "When I look at you," Mason continued, his voice soft yet intense, "I don't just see beauty. I see strength, passion, and a joy for life. You think you're 64, but to me, you've always been the most captivating woman." His words broke through the last of her resistance. Ella took a deep breath, looking at him, her voice trembling but determined. "Mason, you see me in a way I haven't felt in years, and I can't deny that." The silence that followed was heavy, yet it spoke volumes. They just looked at each other, and in that quiet, every unspoken truth was revealed. The forbidden pull between them had become undeniable, irreversible. As the music from the gramophone faded into the background, Ella felt the world outside their bubble cease to exist. Here, in this moment with Mason, she felt alive again, seen and cherished. The night was still young, and the promise of what could be hung in the air, a tantalizing possibility that neither of them could ignore. The candles had burned down to their wicks, casting a soft, flickering light across the room. The gramophone played its last note, leaving a silence that was both comforting and charged with anticipation. Ella's heart was a storm of emotions, and Mason's confession had ignited a fire within her that she hadn't felt in years. "Mason," Ella began, her voice barely above a whisper, "I need to think. I need a moment." Her words were not a rejection, but a plea for space to process the whirlwind of feelings. "I understand," Mason replied, his voice gentle. understanding. He watched as Ella stood, her movements graceful yet unsteady, and made her way to the staircase leading to her bedroom. In the solitude of her room, Ella sat on the edge of her bed, the weight of the moment pressing down on her. She looked around, at the familiar walls, the memories they held. Jonathan's presence was still here, in the photos, in the books, in the very air she breathed. But now, Mason's words echoed in her mind, offering a new chapter, a new possibility. She stood, pacing the room, her mind racing. "What am I doing?" she whispered to herself, torn between the comfort of the past and the allure of the present. Her eyes caught sight of Jonathan's photo on the nightstand, his smile warm and reassuring. "What would you think, my love?" she murmured, her voice breaking. The door creaked open, and there stood Mason, his figure framed by the soft light from the hallway. His eyes were filled with concern, with hope, with something unspoken yet palpable. "Ella, I didn't mean to push you," he said, stepping into the room, closing the door behind him with a gentle click. Ella turned to face him, her heart pounding in her chest. "Mason, this is confusing. I've lived in the shadow of my love for Jonathan for so long, and now you come here bringing light into my life again." "I know," Mason said, his voice low, his gaze never leaving hers. "And I respect your love for him. But Ella, life isn't just about the past. It's about the moments we live, the connections we make." The room felt smaller, the air between them charged with an electricity that made Ella's skin tingle. She took a step towards him, her decision not made lightly, but with a heart full of longing. "I'm scared, Mason," she confessed, her voice trembling. "Scared of what this means, of what people might think." Mason moved closer, his presence comforting. "Ella, I'm not here to complicate your life. I'm here because I can't imagine my life without you in it anymore. If you tell me to leave, I will. But I want you to know I'm not here to replace Jonathan. I'm here to love you, to cherish you, as you are now." The words were a balm to her soul, a permission to feel again, to live again. Ella reached out, her hand finding his, their fingers intertwining. "I am surrendering to you, Mason," she whispered, the words a mix of fear and excitement. Mason's response was a kiss, gentle at first, then deepening with passion, a silent promise that they were embarking on something new together. The kiss was a bridge, crossing the chasm of years, of propriety, of doubt, and landing them in a place where only their feelings mattered. As their lips parted, Ella felt a mix of exhilaration and trepidation. "Tonight, we're not running from anything," Mason said, his voice a caress, his hands cupping her face. They stood there, the world outside forgotten, their breaths mingling in the quiet room. Ella felt a sense of freedom, of being alive in a way she hadn't since Jonathan's passing. Mason's presence was a balm to her loneliness, a promise of companionship, of love. The night unfolded with a tenderness that spoke of two souls finding each other in the most unexpected way. They talked, they laughed, they shared stories of their lives, their dreams, their fears. And in those hours, Ella realized that love wasn't just about the past. It was about the present, about the connections we make, the moments we choose to live. As dawn crept through the curtains, casting a soft light over them, Ella felt a peace she hadn't known in years. Mason, lying beside her, his arm around her, was not a replacement, but a new beginning, a testament to the resilience of the human heart. The emotional climax of their night wasn't just about the physical connection, but the emotional one, the realization that life could still surprise them, that love could still find a way, even in the most unexpected places. And as they lay there, the world outside starting its day, Ella knew that whatever happened next, she had made a choice to embrace life, to embrace love, in all its complexities and wonders. The morning light filtered through the curtains, casting a gentle glow over the room. Ella stirred, feeling the warmth of Mason's body beside her, his arms still draped protectively over her. The reality of the night before settled in, a mix of exhilaration and a newfound sense of peace. She turned to look at him, His face relaxed in sleep, and a soft smile played on her lips. Mason woke to find Ella watching him, her eyes filled with a mix of emotions. "Good morning," he murmured, his voice husky with sleep. "Good morning," Ella replied, her voice steady but her heart racing. The night had changed everything, and now, in the light of day, they needed to face what came next. They sat up, the bedsheets rustling as they moved closer to each other. Mason took her hand, his touch reassuring. "Ella, last night was unexpected, but it felt right," he began, his gaze searching hers for any sign of regret. "It did," Ella agreed, her voice soft. "But Mason, we need to talk about this, about what happens now." He nodded, understanding the gravity of her words. "I know, and I want you to know that I'm here for you, no matter what you decide. If you need time, if you need space, I'll give it to you." Ella took a deep breath, her mind clear despite the whirlwind of emotions. "I've lived in the shadow of my past for so long, Mason. Last night, you brought light into my life again, and I don't want to lose that. But we need to be careful, considerate of others' feelings." "I agree," Mason said, his voice earnest. "We'll take it one step at a time, together." They discussed how to navigate their new relationship, the potential reactions from friends and family, and the need for discretion. Ella's heart was full of hope, yet she was aware of the complexities that lay ahead. They agreed to keep their relationship private for now, to give Ella time to adjust, and to ensure they were both ready for whatever came next. As they prepared breakfast together, there was a lightness in the air, a shared sense of adventure. They laughed over burnt toast and spilled coffee, the mundane acts of domesticity feeling like a new beginning. Later, as Mason prepared to leave, Ella walked him to the door, their hands still intertwined. "Thank you for not letting me spend my birthday alone," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I'll never let you be alone again, if you'll have me," Mason replied, his eyes conveying his sincerity. Ella nodded, a tear escaping down her cheek. "I'd like that." Mason kissed her gently, a promise of more to come. "I'll call you later," he said, stepping out into the morning light. As the door closed behind him, Ella leaned against it, her heart a mixture of joy and trepidation. The house felt different now, not just a repository of memories, but a place where new ones could be made. She knew the path ahead wouldn't be easy, but the night had shown her that love could still surprise, still heal, still offer a chance at happiness. In the days that followed, Ella and Mason navigated their relationship with care. They met in secret, enjoying stolen moments together, the thrill of their new connection tempered by the need for discretion. Mason was patient, understanding of Ella's need to process her feelings, to come to terms with this new chapter in her life. Ella found herself coming alive again, her days filled with a purpose she hadn't felt in years. She began to engage more with the world outside, attending community events, reconnecting with old friends, all while keeping her relationship with Mason close to her heart. As the weeks turned into months, Ella and Mason decided it was time to share their love with those closest to them. They chose a quiet dinner at Ella's home, inviting a few trusted friends and family members. The evening was filled with laughter, stories, and the warmth of acceptance. To their relief, their relationship was met with understanding and support. Though there were questions, there was also love and a willingness to see them happy. The resolution of their story wasn't just about acceptance from others, but about Ella accepting herself, her right to love again, to find happiness. She realized that moving forward didn't mean forgetting the past, but embracing the present and the future with open arms. And as she sat there, surrounded by the people she loved, with Mason's hand in hers, Ella felt a profound sense of peace. Life, she understood now, was about the connections we make, the love we share, and the courage to embrace new beginnings, even when they come unexpectedly. The resolution was not an end, but a beautiful continuation, a testament to the human heart's capacity to love, to heal, and to find joy in the most unexpected places. Years had passed since that night when Mason had unexpectedly arrived at Ella's doorstep, bringing with him a new chapter in her life. Now, as the autumn leaves painted the world in hues of gold and crimson, Ella stood in her garden, watching the sun set over the horizon. Mason approached from behind, wrapping his arms around her, his chin resting on her shoulder. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" he murmured, his voice a comfortable presence after all this time. "It is," Ella agreed, leaning back into him. "But not as beautiful as what we've built together." Their life together had been a journey of discovery, of learning to blend their pasts into a shared future. They had traveled, explored new hobbies, and faced challenges together, always with an unwavering support for one another. Their love had grown, deepening with each passing day, proving that love at any age could be vibrant and full of life. They had moved into a new home, one that was theirs, filled with laughter, music, and the warmth of companionship. The walls were adorned with photos, not just of their adventures, but of Jonathan too, his memory honored in their new life together. Ella had taken up painting, a passion she had set aside after Jonathan's passing. Her canvases now captured the essence of their love, the moments they cherished, and the beauty of the world around them. Mason, ever supportive, had turned part of their home into a small gallery where friends and family could admire her work. Their relationship had also inspired others, showing that love could find a way, even in the most unexpected circumstances. They had become advocates for love and companionship in later life, speaking at community events, sharing their story, and offering hope to those who felt their time for love had passed. As they stood there, the cool breeze of the evening carrying the scent of pine, Mason turned Ella gently to face him. "Ella, my love, these years with you have been the most extraordinary of my life," he said, his eyes filled with emotion. "And mine," Ella replied, her hand reaching up to touch his cheek. "You've given me a second chance at happiness, at love, when I thought it was all behind me." Mason took her hand, his touch as gentle as ever. "I have something for you," he said, pulling out a small velvet box from his pocket. He opened it to reveal a delicate ring, not an engagement ring, but a symbol of their commitment to each other. "I want you to have this as a reminder of our journey, of our love." Tears welled up in Ella's eyes as she accepted the ring, slipping it onto her finger. "It's perfect," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. They embraced, the world around them fading into the background. Their love story, which had begun with a birthday celebration, had evolved into something far greater. It was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, to the endless possibilities of love, and to the beauty of finding each other in the twilight of life. As the stars began to twinkle above, Ella and Mason walked back into their home, hand in hand, ready to face whatever the future held, knowing that together they could weather any storm. Their epilogue was not an end, but a continuation, a promise of more days filled with love, laughter, and the simple joy of being together.